Hello, True Health Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. We're getting into the holiday season, and I know a lot of people are running to the flu shots because they're afraid of getting sick. And I have to tell you, there's a better way. There's a better way to boost your immune system naturally. And I'd love for you to go to takeyoursupplements.com, put your information in, and speak to, for free, a health coach. They will help you. They'll hold your hand and they'll help you to get the best supplements for you at the right price within your budget that will boost your immune system so you can prevent illness, or if you do get sick, you'll recover faster. They have amazing immune boosting herbal formulas that are safe for adults and children and that help you to get through the cold season. I can't believe how fast I recovered from pneumonia. It was amazing, and it's because I have all these vitamins, these minerals, these amino acids, these fatty acids, and these herbal concoctions that are safe, that are effective, and that nourish the body and help the body to heal and recover faster and to prevent illness. So if you're looking for a natural solution to keeping your health during the holiday season, I'd love for you to check out takeyoursupplements.com. Please go to takeyoursupplements.com and enjoy today's show. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 206. Today we have with us a wonderful guest. If you love yoga, or if you are curious about yoga, you are going to be thrilled to meet Shahar. I really hope I pronounced your name right because it's such a beautiful name that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, Shahar will be the right way to pronounce it, but I think for everybody coming outside of Israel, it's not that easy.
Well,
but
it's a beautiful
you got it
name.
Pretty good.
Thank you. Pretty good. Okay, well, we'll work on that. Well, I love your story, and I love the philosophy that you have behind your yoga training. You are a trainer of yoga, so you teach people how to deepen their yoga practice and how to create a sustainable yoga practice at home, because it's so much better to do something every day than do it once a week in a classroom, right? So I love what
That's
you do.
true.
And I'm excited for the listeners to learn more about yoga, the different styles, and your story. Let's start with your story because you have a really beautiful one. Please share with us what led you to yoga and what led you to want to live your life teaching others yoga.
I started with yoga quite a long time ago when I was 18. I have three big sisters, and one of them, she's a very special person in my life. And she led me to India for the first time when I was just 18. She has a very strong convincing powers. So she convinced me, and more hard was to convince our parents to go to India together. But we've done that. And that was like my first introduction to yoga. And I loved it really quite from the beginning. And I wanted to learn more and do more. But, I came back to Israel. Life, took its own course. But at some point, I came back to it. And mostly when I started to experience hard times, when I was 21, 22, I had a pretty bad depression and a lot of mental health issues. And at that time, yoga was something that really, really helped me a lot. Mostly in the end of my recovery, you can say, like when I already started to feel better and I started to become more stable, I was not depressed anymore, but I still had a lot of questions about life and what are we doing here and why and how can we be happier and what happiness even means. The logo of my whole, the motto of my whole brand is happiness comes from within, because that was the main thing that I found in my experiences with yoga. So that led me to India again, this kind of search for what happiness really means to me. And there I encountered Buddhism, I encountered much more yoga. I've done my first teacher training. And Yeah, I really invested a lot of time in my own practice. And only 4 years ago, more or less, when I came to Berlin, I decided that I want to become a teacher, that it's really time for me to start to teach. And I've done another training, and I felt like my own practice is deep enough so I can share it with others.
Wonderful. And what styles of yoga do you practice? There's so many I know, like about Hatha, Bikram, Kripalu. There's many of them out there. Which ones do you practice?
I practice very traditional hatha yoga, you can say. In a way, all of the different styles, they're all hatha yoga. They all come from the same source. And with the time, and mostly with the transfer to the West, they came through different teachers that had different styles. And some of these teachers even had the same teacher, but he was teaching each student according to his own abilities. So they learned, a certain part of yoga, and then they brought it to the West, and it became, for example, Ashtanga, or it became, for example, Iyengar, or different kind of yoga that we know today. But they are all basically hatha yoga from
Wow,
historical point of view.
I did not know
Yeah.
that. I took a 2 week yoga class. It was like every day for 2 weeks, and
Hmm.
it was the best workout of my life. The reason why I loved it so much is all I did was I was in one spot the entire time, and yet it was the most intense workout. It was kind of like doing CrossFit, but never having to like go more than 2 feet. And I thought, how is this possible that I'm getting this really awesome workout? Like all my muscles feel incredibly sore the next day. That good soreness that you get when you haven't been working out and for a while, and then you go to the gym and you pump a bunch of machines and you move your body a bunch and you run on the
Mm,
treadmill. And I was getting that from one hatha yoga class, and I thought that was really interesting. That and the teacher was teaching us about the discipline of hatha, that it's more than just moving your
mm.
body, that there's a huge mental and emotional component that came with it. Can you speak to that for those who've maybe never experienced yoga or haven't experienced um, having a deep yoga practice? What kind of mental and emotional growth happens when you incorporate yoga into your life?
A lot. I can say from my own personal experience that this is the most what I've got from yoga. Like, of course, I have a relatively healthy body, and consider myself pretty strong and pretty flexible. But what I really got from yoga is the mental mindset. And what I like to tell my students is that the physical exercises that we do, or generally speaking, the practice that we do, it's like a playground. Like, it is very nice to build this flexibility, or to build these strengths, or to be able to stand on one foot. But in the end, what really helps us in yoga is, for example, if we take the example of standing on one leg. So, yeah, you often fall. You often just, you know, don't really manage to hold this position for very long. And then you just learn falling with laughing about it and not taking yourself too seriously. So, this is what I actually gain from the tree pose. It's not so much about this balance, but it's really the question of what balance is, and maybe balancing this ability to fall over and just try again and just try again and be open and be, yeah, very positive about it. So this is just one example of what you get from yoga, but I think it has many different things that you can learn from it, many different mindsets, mostly just to be focused on the present moment and to use your body and your breath as an anchor, because your body and your body sensations and your breath and the sensations that come with your breath, they cannot live in the past or in the future or wherever. And if you're doing the practice right, so you are totally focused on what you are doing, and you are developing some kind of an awareness to your body and an awareness to your breath that can support you in everything that you do in your life because it becomes a habit.
Mm. Do you have stories that you could share of your students? Any success stories of how yoga and how working with you has transformed their life, both their health, but also their emotional or mental or spiritual health?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't have any specific story in mind of something that was very revolutionary, but I think mostly the students that I have for some time or students that I really worked with have done some very deep process with them. I definitely see that they are able to use yoga in a way that support them in their life. Like I have a student that she has a pretty rough situation at home, and yeah, it's hard for her also to kind of find space in in her own home, which you can only imagine how does that feel. And she told me that she just started to practice yoga on the balcony, and in Berlin right now, it's not really nice outside, but she still keeps doing that because it's just her way to just find her own space and just reconnect again with her body and with the present moment to find some peace in this really hard situation that she has. So this is just one thing that comes in mind, and it maybe doesn't sound very big because it didn't transform her situation, but it just gave her a little bit of peace and some tools of how to deal with this.
So it empowered her to be able to make sure that she had me time, that she had the time for herself,
Mm,
which a lot of people lose when they are in those kind of situations.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I saw not that long ago in Instagram something really nice that it was like, yeah, like this kind of a quote, yoga. I don't remember who said it, unfortunately, but he said something like yoga it's for people with big body, with small body, with white, black, whatever you are, you can do yoga, but it's not for lazy people. And I think, yeah, and I really like that also. I really had to laugh. And I can say it so much from my experience because as we talked about this student of mine, she practiced at home. She comes every week to class for at least 2 years now. You know, she's really doing the work. And I think that this had a lot with the things that she can experience and the space that she found in it. Because it's not something that I gave her, it's something that she worked for herself and found for herself. And this is, for me as a yoga teacher, kind of my goal. You know, I'm not a coach or something like that. I'm not here to, you know, help people through a transformation. I'm here just to give the tools and to give the support, maybe would be a better word, and to give the information and the wisdom that I have, whatever that means, and how much I have to give. This is what I give. And I think that most of the work, it's really something that you need to do yourself.
I agree with you. True transformation happens within you. No one else can do it for you, and that's part of empowerment. But you can give them the tools, and I can I can respect that. Why do you think it is that yoga has such a positive effect on, I don't want to say the word curing depression, but on eliminating it, on helping someone no longer have it, on bringing the person back into a state of balance so that depression as a symptom isn't there anymore? Why do you think that is?
Um, I think it has something to do with the fact that, as I said, yoga works on the mind. I personally deal a lot with this, yeah, connection between yoga and depression. I don't see at all yoga as a cure for depression. I'm very, very careful about trying to say that. especially when I'm talking about my own story. I didn't use yoga as my cure. I've done also other things. I changed my nutrition. I went to therapy. I've done whatever I needed to do. And yoga was just something that supported me on this recovery. And I think yoga can be a really good support for a lot of people that are on this recovery path. And especially when I already started to feel better, it was even more effective because I can start to meditate and I can start to practice in a deeper level. When you are in deep depression, it's really hard and even sometimes dangerous to do this kind of deep level surgeries to your mind. But when I was able to see it, what I learned from it was that I don't have to believe everything I think.
Oh.
And I was thinking about it a lot lately because I was thinking also again about my times about depression. I start to forget. But slowly I remember that this is really something that I realized that really helped me. That not everything that crossed my mind is something that I have to follow, and that I can choose which kind of words I use with myself and which kind of thoughts do I strengthen and which kind of thoughts I say, like, maybe I should doubt that. That is a really beautiful song in Israel that says, like, believe your belief, doubt your doubts. And that was something that was really supporting me a lot at this time. And I think that the practice of yoga and mostly also the practice of meditation are, as I said, a really good playground, a very good place where you can start to just observe your mind and observe your body from just a different perspective, which is much more balanced and much more positive.
What I heard, what you just said, is that if you have a belief that is a doubt of yourself, like if I had a belief I'm not good enough, I'm not loved. If there's a belief we have that is actually a doubt of our own abilities, it's not a belief, it's a doubt. And we should doubt our doubts. We should question these negative thoughts, these negative belief systems that may be thoughts passing through our mind. Like it could be about our partner or a coworker or our boss or just someone on the street looking at us and we think, oh, they gave me a nasty look, I must look ugly, or whatever these stupid thoughts come into our mind and we grab onto them, especially the negative ones. I recently had a guest on who actually verified that there's scientific proof that it only takes milliseconds for the brain to complete a negative thought, but that it takes seconds to complete a positive thought. And so there's so much less energy. Like
Mm.
negative thoughts are energy efficient. So they kind of, we tend to like grab onto them and think they're real, but it's
That's
we
very
if
interesting.
we
Yeah.
slow down, which is what yoga does, it has us slow down, then we start
Mm.
to go, well, wait a second, these positive thoughts, which require more attention, more energy to nurture, to foster, actually have such a positive effect on our health and on that on our life as a whole. So we need to, like you said, doubt our doubts, and we need to start listening to our belief system, going, is this really a belief or is this a doubt that I'm having about myself? Because a belief we want to be empowering, right? And yoga allows us to slow down and slow down our mind. It's like meditation and emotion, but it allows us to slow down long enough to start to hear our own voice inside.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think that we have also a lot of beliefs that are positive beliefs, but we constantly doubt them. And that's a big problem in and of itself. And I know that for myself, especially when I was recovering from depression and also now, I think that the process of questioning is really, really essential. I really needed to question a lot of my habits, a lot of my thought patterns. I needed to kind of reevaluate almost everything in my life. And of course, I was a very deep shit, if I'm allowed to say this kind of words. But I think even now, when my life are much, much better and not even comparable, I still constantly question everything that I see that leads to negative results in my life, and things that I see that bring positive results to my life, or even in the sense of makes me feel better and makes me become a more calm and more relaxed and more secure person, then I keep it, I hold on to it. And I think that, as you said, like the main problem is that we grab on things, we hold on to them, and we are not willing to let go. And that's mostly from the Buddhist point of view. If I'm, yeah, kind of sliding into Buddhism for a second there, that's the main problem of most of the things that we do, and the main cause of our suffering, that we hold on to thoughts and we are not able to let go of things, and we are just so attached to our likes and dislikes and what is right and what is wrong, and we are so deep inside these stories about who I am and how things function, that we are not even open to see what really actually happens at the moment just in front of us.
I so agree with you. And we can go into a discussion about Buddhism because I think Buddhism and yoga really they intertwine, but that doesn't mean that we have to it's not sacrilegious. It's not if you were Jewish or Christian or Catholic or Muslim. Talking about Buddhism and the philosophies is not going against our religion. It's not going against our religion. I consider Buddhism a philosophy, and if you want to dive into the Buddhism as your religion, by all means. But I think that everyone could benefit from the philosophy, from just trying on the thinking of yoga and the thinking of Buddhism, because of what you just said. I've been struggling a while now thinking about physical possessions, and my husband and
Mm.
we spent like the last, I think, 6 months. I mean, time just flies. I feel like we just started, but we got, that book written by a Japanese author that talks about
Yeah.
decluttering life, and you basically hold every object in your house and go, does this bring me joy? And if it doesn't, you donate
Yeah.
it or you get rid of it in some way, recycle it,
Yeah.
throw it out, donate it. And so we started with the easy part. We started with our wardrobe, and we got rid of 9 giant garbage bags of clothing. And now
Wow.
we don't have a
And
huge
that's not at all the easy part. I think for a lot of people, the wardrobe, it's probably the hardest part, but it's very relative.
yeah,
Yeah.
because there's an emotional component with clothing. Absolutely, I kept a lot of clothing. I mean, we have. I could not believe how much clothing we had. We don't have a huge house. We have 3. We're lucky enough to have 3 closets throughout the house, and they were all just so full we couldn't see anything, and I couldn't believe it. And it's not.
Yeah.
We don't go shopping a lot. Like, we're not obsessed with buying things all the time, and yet we somehow seem to have collected so much clutter.
Mm.
And so as we decluttered, it became so emotional in a good way. It became such an emotional release. And as we
Mm.
donated the clothing, I just could not believe how much we were giving up, and how much resistance I had towards letting go. And then we did the kitchen, and of course I wanted to keep the 9 different cheese graters. We both don't eat cheese anymore. Like, you got to get how ridiculous it is. I suppose I could grate a
Yeah.
carrot with my 9 cheese graters, but it's like we are
Why?
so, I know, right?
Yeah.
We're so attached to our physical possessions. And I've caught myself a few times in the recent months feeling sad about not being able to, at the exact moment, afford a physical item. Like, oh, I really would like to buy this. And then I felt sad that I couldn't, or that it wouldn't be responsible to budget for that. And then I became the observer of myself going through this process of feeling sad because I couldn't immediately have a physical object in my life, and how much brain power that was taking up, that I was thinking for the last few months about wanting to have certain items in my life that were physical and not being able to have them. And of course, now we're going to the holiday
Mm.
season. People are shopping or not shopping because they can't afford it, or they can't afford the things they want to buy. And that obsession, that loop, I've caught myself in a vicious loop where my thoughts were in the back of my head, always going towards, I can't have that. I'm sad. I can't have that. I'm angry. I can't have that. Whatever it was. And I caught myself and I went, this is I need to like start thinking about Buddhism and how, they like let go of possessions, that this need for the physical, this need to hold on to the physical world or be obsessed with whether you have or don't have physical items in your life, practicing non-attachment. When
It's
I
not so much about the stuff. I'm sorry if I'm
Yeah.
cutting you. It's not so much about the stuff. Also in Buddhism, I think it's more about the letting go of the thoughts. Because if you let go of the thoughts, I need this thing,
Right.
then the stuff itself, the physical item itself, has no meaning
Right.
whatsoever.
That's what I was getting to, is that
Yeah.
I don't care about the stuff. Like, listen,
Uh,
I'm happy. I have a roof over my head. I have food on the table. I have my child and my husband. I am blessed. I am so happy. I have everything I need. And yet it was, what I realized is that the thoughts were draining me, that I was putting all this time and attention into this vicious cycle of thoughts about physical things, and the obsession about the thoughts, and the depression, the sadness, that and the
mm.
anxiety that was coming from these thought loops, and being attached to that. And so when I started thinking about what would it look like to let go, what would it look like to let go, and no longer have the desire, the need for these physical things, to just let go and be in the now. I mean, we really struggle with being in the now, being present, and just being grateful for what we do have. And I think, doesn't yoga help us to break through that barrier and just be happy in the now with what we do have?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's even more than that, because I think the sadness that you felt, it's good to feel it. I don't say like if you feel sadness, you should, try to suppress it or something. It's good to feel it, but then it's also good to question it. Like, why do I feel this sadness because of this? It's not something I really want to feel sad about. Like if I feel sad because a friend tells me that she's having a hard time, or I don't know, I see something that makes me sad. So I feel different with this sadness. As I said, it's a part of my belief. Sadness, it's part of compassion in a way. So I don't want to not have sadness anymore, but to have sadness because I cannot have something, which is something I know very well, like the feelings that you describe, something that I know as well. And then I ask myself, like, what is it based on? And I know that at least for me, it's based on this feeling that if I was endlessly rich and I could just buy it without any kind of a problem and without needing to think about it, I would just buy whatever I want to buy, I would be happier. My life will be easier. And when I say it like this, or when I think it like that, it is obvious that this is totally BS, that
Right.
I cannot trust this kind of thought. And then with time, the more you practice it and you think like, why am I thinking like this? Like, it's really going to be happier? Is it really going to be easier? Does it make sense to be sad about not wanting, about wanting to have this stuff? Um, and then when again and again says, it doesn't make sense. I know it's not really true. It's a sentence I use for myself quite a lot. I know I feel like this, it feels true, but there is a part of me who also knows that this doesn't make any sense. This is not true. And I just slowly, gradually let go of it. And what you said right now with the things, it reminded me of a very beautiful story I heard once, that there was a king. He had a big, beautiful palace. It's kind of Indian stories. It's always about kings with beautiful palaces. and and of course, because again, it's an Indian story, there was a yogi, a teacher. And the yogi came to the palace to teach the king. And this yogi had only like his begging bowl. And then, they said it's a beautiful day today, so let's do the teaching outside. Let's go for a walk. And they went for a walk, and the teacher gave him teachings about, all the kind of things we talked right now. And then somebody came running and said, like, "Oh no, you don't believe the whole palace is on fire." And the the king was like, "Yeah, that's okay. That's not a problem." And the yogi was like, "What? But I left my begging bowl there." He had just one item, but he was so attached to it. He was really sad when it was gone. And my teacher always said, like, it's not about what you want, it's about how attached are you to it. Do you
Mm.
understand what I mean by that?
Absolutely, yes, because it's that attachment then that are now all of our emotions are wrapped up in it. But if we can let go, um, we're free. It's almost
Yeah.
like mental and emotional slavery to allow ourselves to be attached to things. I had a interesting experience when I had first just moved down to the States. My dad was in the process of moving his factory, and he had stored all of he was also in the process of moving homes, and he stored
Mm,
all of my childhood possessions and all of my mom passed away before this, so all my mom's
mm.
possessions and all my grandparents, all the antiques and the things we inherited and the paintings, everything was
All
stored,
the possession
all
that
the
was possible
possessions,
to
right?
possess.
I had just moved down to the States, and I was and I basically just taken what was in my car, because I knew
Mm,
once I got settled in the States that we'd get some moving trucks and come down, and I could have all my possessions down here. Well, he
yeah.
suddenly passed away,
Oh.
and all of our possessions were stolen.
Oh,
And
wow.
I told one of my best friends who was in Toronto at the time. I told her where to go, because it was, I knew where the factory was. It was a temporary factory, because he ran a business, a manufacturing business, and he had a storage unit attached to the factory where he was storing all of our stuff. And I knew it was happening, and so I told my friend, okay, the one thing I'd want if it was all, out of all of our possessions, would be all of our photo albums, because I want to be able to
Mm,
pass down the photos of my family, my mom,
mm,
who had lost, and then I just had lost my dad. And she went, and out of everything and the chaos of it, she found the box of family photos, which was so great. But I lost everything, and I was really upset about it. Obviously, I was upset because I just lost my dad suddenly. But in the
mm,
back of my mind, this idea that this would be an incredible healing experience for me, to learn how to let go and be okay with it and just let go. And when I did
mm,
that, I could visit in my mind all those possessions. Like, I could see it. Like, I could see,
mm.
my mom's cashmere sweater, or I could see the painting, or I could see the item, and I was okay with not having. I don't have to have it physically. It's in my memories of my childhood, my memories of my mom, and it was incredibly healing to let go and be okay with letting go of things that I was really attached to. And
And even if you had them, even if you had now this cashmere beautiful thing in your house, it's not like you would see it every day or you will feel it every day. Like in the end, even if you had this,
right,
yeah, physical object,
yeah, it doesn't do
the main
anything,
thing
right?
about this object is your memory about it.
Right.
So
Yes.
even if you had the object, it wouldn't make it will probably just sit in your storage somewhere else, you know. It's
Mhm.
not like you would use it every day because anyway, the real value of this stuff was your memories, and this nobody can take from you.
Right. And it's that level of thoughtfulness, that level of the ability to slow down, process the emotion, process the thoughts. I think that happens in yoga, and just and then also right after yoga. Yeah, that
Mm.
moment where you've completed your yoga practice. Maybe you're going to lie there now, or sit there now and just take a few moments. And it's in those moments that your mind has slowed down, and you can really process and think about things, and deal with things, because normally our minds are so busy, we can't we're not there for ourselves. We're not there to support ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, there is a great metaphor that I like to use, that our mind is like a lake, and when it's very windy and very stormy, like we have a lot of thoughts or a lot of things are happening, so you cannot really see anything. And what we do with yoga and meditation, we kind of just stop the wind in a way, you know, and then the lake automatically, when you stop the wind, the lake just calms down. And when it calms down, you can start to see the reflections of everything around it. which is a really beautiful metaphor to what happens when the mind just relax. And the longer you keep it relaxed and it becomes clearer and clearer and just really like crystal, you can even see what's inside, and you can even dive in and try to find all the treasures that are not able to be reached if it's so windy and so crazy on the surface level. So first it's, you take away the wind and then you see the reflection, which is a really strong experience in and of itself. And if you keep to it, you can really dive really deeply. And I always says like the things that our being are capable of, it's infinite. It's just so much that we can experience and so much that we can understand about ourselves and about our life and about this world and about this universe. And this is at least how I see it and my personal experience. But it's impossible if you're just busy with creating wind and your mind, it's kind of like this really stormy lake.
And I also, when you said that, I got the visualization. Not only you see your reflection when you finally calm the lake, but you can finally see what's in the lake. You can see,
Yeah,
maybe you can
exactly.
see all the way down to the bottom, depending on, how calm you've made the lake. You can see deep within, and then also that reflection. And that does feel like what the mind is. Do you feel that practicing yoga, because, maybe we do it half an hour or an hour every day, or maybe 15 minutes, whatever they can handle, or they do it a few times a week, but this practice over time, does it strengthen your ability to be calm and thoughtful, even outside of your yoga practice? So, like, you've gone to the grocery store, you get in traffic, or someone cuts you off, or you go to work, and it's because of that half an hour that you spent in the morning doing yoga. Does it somehow allow you to be tapped in and grounded throughout the day? Does the effect of yoga carry through, like, a long lasting, does it have a long lasting effect?
Definitely, without a doubt. I can say it from my own personal experience and from the experience I see like follower practitioners and even some of my students. But as I said, it's not for the lazy. You really need to do the work, and you really need to do a deep work. And I think that it really doesn't matter how much you do. You just start where you are. And I think yoga is very famous for the physical exercises. But I am a big fan of talking about the other parts of yoga that also exist, that they are not less important. Like we already talked about meditation. So a lot of people see yoga and meditation as two separate things, but they don't. They come from the same tradition. Um, Buddha was also a Hindu, like the same way that Jesus were Jew, for example. I think it's a pretty good comparison. Um, so the practices are very similar. So in yoga itself, they have a lot of meditations, even if you don't look for meditations in the Buddhist canons. There are ethical practices that you can do that can really transform your life in a very, very significant way, just to clean your act. The same way that you as a health coach will say, you need to clean your eating. So as a yoga teacher, I said to people, you have to clean your act. Like you cannot do this and, do very high practices and doesn't have any foundation, ethical foundation for what you do, because then when you go high, it becomes kind of windy and shady and not very stable. So the very basic root is how you treat people when you got cut off in line, or how you deal with people when they are really annoying, or how you deal with yourself when you are really annoying. And there are very clear guidelines in yoga about what you can do and what you should practice. It's a practice. Yeah, you don't just become a saint in one day, but you just practice. You just take a few things that you think that you can do, and you just try to stick to them, a few basic guidelines. So that's a good example of something that everybody can do in every situation, and it doesn't take any formal practice. You can do a lot of breathing exercises, for example. It has tons of health benefits, and it has a lot of benefits for your mind as well, because again, you use your breath and your body as an anchor to this moment. So it's in a way a meditation in and of itself. And it also, you can do like 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, and it already has such a tremendous effect. And of course, you need to do it over time, and you need to practice regularly, which is for a lot of people really hard. And this is my main work, try to help people to practice regularly, because I know that also for myself, it was not that easy. But if you do make the work, if you do make the effort, if you do make the commitment, of course, you see a change in your life. It's not magic. It's not a quick fix. It takes work, but it works. Yeah,
You know, people who
definitely.
drink coffee. I recently stopped drinking coffee, and if you go back in a time machine and tell me 2 months ago that I'd be stopping coffee, I'd tell you you're crazy, 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 crazy. But I was sick recently, and so during that sickness, I did
Mm.
not feel like drinking coffee, and I don't advise drinking coffee when you're sick. Although my naturopath said, well, try to get a little bit of coffee, so you don't get your headache. I'm like, listen, I'm sick. I don't need to drink coffee. And and then a few weeks later, it was like I went to drink some, and my body totally rejected it. I thought that was so cool that my body had this experience of,
Mm.
no, we don't want this in our body. And so I switched to tea, which is so much, I gotta tell you, so much more fun than coffee. I'm having a blast. I have like 50 different teas now, and I'm playing with
Yeah,
the different caffeinated ones and the herbal ones at night, and all the the healing teas. And it's
yeah,
it
that's
is
amazing.
it's so much more fun than coffee. But for those who are drinking coffee, which I understand, we never forget our coffee unless we're sick, right? But we never forget our coffee. We never forget to
Mm.
brew it in the morning and put it in our travel mug and take it to work, or buy it at Starbucks or whatever. But we never forget our coffee, right? So that's a habit that we never forget. Why is it that something so healing and so therapeutic and so useful like yoga at first it is hard as a practice to do every day, when it's so easy to remember the coffee that we're addicted to? Is it because
Yeah,
it's a
addicted
yeah.
is the main word here. Yeah, coffee is just addicting. Like I am always like on and off. I have like an on-off addiction relationship with coffee. And the main reason I always tell myself it's annoying because of these headaches. Because these
Mm,
headaches are actually a sign that you're addicted. And this is something that for me, again, as a yoga teacher and as a Buddhist, I feel quite uncomfortable being addicted to something and knowing it and not doing anything about it. But
mm-hmm,
I drink also a lot of tea. Like I drink just one coffee a day, and the rest of the time I drink tea. And mostly now in the winter, like I'm drinking tea 5 times a day.
mm-hmm,
So tea is definitely fun. And I think that addiction, it's really the reason why people don't forget their coffee. And it's also a cultural thing, like if we were all born in a country when every morning our mom does her yoga or some kind of other religious ritual or spiritual ritual or whatever, it will also be totally normal. But
mm-hmm,
most of us don't grow up in this kind of a house. And I think for a lot of people, like I don't like to blame society because it's not fair. Society doesn't do it on purpose for most of the time. And it also doesn't help. I need to take responsibility on myself. And I think that for myself, what I understood is that I need to create my own culture and I need to create my own why. I
mm,
think when you don't really have a very strong why behind what you're doing, if you're doing yoga just because it's hip or because somebody told you it might help your health, or some people do yoga for weight loss, which I personally don't really know how it should help, but if it helps, and there are certain yogas that might help, but not my style. Um, these kind of reasons, these are all good side effects. But in the end, the real reason to do yoga is to really gain this inner freedom and this inner peace. And if this is your goal, then this is a big and a strong goal, and this is something that can keep you going. So this is the first reason I think people don't manage to keep to it, because their why is just too small. So what I always say is just dream big. It sounds crazy mostly to people in our in our society. If you go out and say, even if you say to yourself, my goal in life is to achieve internal inner freedom, it sounds completely insane. If you go to a shrink and you will tell him, I want to get rid of all of my neuroses, they will put you in nut house. But in yoga, this is our goal. This is what we want to do. We want to get rid of this crazy neurotic mind, or at least to learn how to deal with it with a completely different way. And get rid, it's maybe not a very good word for it. um, so yeah, you need to really dig deep into why are we even doing yoga, and why are you doing yoga? What is your personal big why behind it? If it's a minor goal, it wouldn't really hold. The second thing that a lot of people do is that they you need to dream big, but you need to start small. And they start really big. I want to practice every day, 1.5 hours a day. I want to do this and this and this and this. And it's just like I had it all the time. I still have it sometimes. I get to know some kind of new practice and I'm all excited about it and I want to do it for hours a day. But in the end, you need to be realistic and just start where you are and start very small. And then it naturally grows. It naturally becomes more easier to do this practice for longer times. You start to see results, so it's natural that your motivation to find more time for it will grow bigger. And actually the biggest obstacle that people have is that they don't start at all. So you need to start
Mm.
small and you need to start now, because later maybe it will be easier later, maybe you will have more time later, but maybe not. We just need to accept the fact that life is quite unpredictable and the future always looks greener. But actually, the grass is only greener if you water it, not if it's, sour. It's also something that I stole. I didn't thought about it myself,
But you
but
can
it's
add
very
it.
true.
You can add it to your yoga's not for lazy people, because we look over
Definitely.
at the, like, I look at the pictures of you on your website are breathtaking. You are
Oh,
gorgeous
thank you.
and radiant. You
Thank you. Thank
radiate, you radiate, radiate. You are, you have light shining out of you. You can just see that you have peace and you are so healthy looking. I know people would
Oh,
look at
thank you
you,
so much.
well, it's true. And I think people would look at you and go, that's the grass that's always greener. Like, I want to be like her, right?
Yeah.
And the fact is that we have to water the grass. And we water our own grass, our grass is going to be green too. We got to put the work into it, is what you're saying. And I love that. So when we catch ourselves with the grass is always greener mentality, like being jealous of someone else for something they have, instead of going, that SOB, they are driving that, really expensive car, or that SOB, she has the gorgeous shoes and purse and matching jewelry, or that SOB, she's so gorgeous, she's a size 2, I wish I was her. Whenever we say something negative about someone, we actually really wish was an attribute that we embodied. So
Yeah, and
I
we
look at
believe this is how happiness looks
but
like.
what we're doing is creating more misery, because on an unconscious level we're telling ourselves, I don't like that person because they have what I want. It's a very confusing message we're sending ourselves by putting out negative emotions and negative energy towards someone who is a reflection of what we want, or what we'd like to achieve. Instead, we need to go, look at that beautiful person, look at that gorgeous, look at that man or woman, they, for achieving what they have, what that's so good for them. They're an example of a reflection of how I want my grass to look like. I'm going to put the
Mm,
work in to make my, now I have a physical example of the attributes that I want in my life. I'm going to start working on my grass, and so I'm going to do my
mm,
internal work. I'm going to work on me because I see something beautiful over there. But instead of getting jealous and angry and petty at them, because that's sending a mixed message to ourselves, we need to then get excited and happy that we see that it's a possibility in life to achieve that, and we can too. There's also something that happens in mentally when we hold on to these negative emotions. We actually shunt blood away from the logic centers of the brain, because we trigger the autonomic nervous system sympathetic response, which puts the body in fight or flight. So simply getting upset or holding on to any negative
Mm.
emotions puts the body in fight or flight, and now we've shunted the blood away from the logic centers of the brain, and we cannot think out of the problem. Like Einstein says, you can't think,
Mm.
you can't solve the same
So,
problem with the same mindset that you created it. And it's so true. Physically, physiologically, it's been proven. Yoga triggers the body to get out of the fight or flight and get into rest and
mm.
digest, which shunts blood back to the logic centers of the brain, back to all the organs to heal the organs. And now we can begin to see the possibilities open up. So when people are in crisis and they go, I don't know what to do, I just don't have any options, there's no options for me. If they get out of crisis mode, they get into the relaxed
Mm.
state, then all of a sudden now they can begin to create their action steps that would solve the problem. And so I think yoga would also train us in crisis prevention and in how to handle situations in a crisis, because we could really think clearly through one, because we have developed those strategies. So I think it's there's real life skills that we can get from studying yoga, and like you said, doing it at your own pace, but starting, at least starting. You teach. Oh, and another thing you said is that you weren't sure how yoga would help for weight loss. I get it. It's not like Biggest Loser. We're not putting people on a treadmill for 8 hours a day. But
Yeah.
but what you did say was that yoga, the purpose of yoga is to get rid of the neuroses and to create inner peace.
Mm.
And from personal experience, having struggled with weight in the past, and
Mm.
working on it now, it is that if someone were to achieve inner peace and get rid of their neuroses, then a weight loss plan would be as simple as making wonderful lifestyle choices that help support them. But a lot of problems that people have when struggling with weight loss is that they don't have inner peace and they're
Yeah,
struggling with their
definitely.
neuroses. So yeah, I don't think yoga
Yeah,
would
this is
like.
something I can say from my own personal experience as well. I'm actually on a diet right now. And yeah, I also thought about it. Like, I'm so thankful that I have this connection with my body and
Mm,
that I have this respect for my body and that I have these kind of strange thoughts coming up because I'm on a diet and, some stuff are limited. Like, I'm doing it mostly for health reasons,
mm-hmm,
but it's still kind of some stuff are limited and calories are limited and it brings all kind of crazy thoughts in my mind. But I have the tools and I have the habits to deal with them differently. So in this way, of course, it can help. But in the sense of like, do yoga, you will automatically lose weight. Not necessarily. Like, it's not that direct. It's more like, again, like I think it's more of a support.
mm-hmm.
Like the same with depression. Do yoga, you wouldn't get depressed. I don't know about that. I don't want to promise it to anybody. I just know that if you are recovering from depression or you want to prevent depression, yoga can be a really good support for you because it's, like you said, it's a philosophy, it's a mindset, it's something that you practice in order to evolve and transform your mind. Of course, it has also an effect on your body. Of course, they are also connected, but it's not a quick fix in the sense of like, I solved the problem of depression in the world.
Got it. It did, but it sounds like a beautiful amplifier. Is there something you'd like to teach? Some steps or some tips or tricks you'd like to teach the listeners while you're here? I understand yoga is something that's so visual,
Yeah.
that it's not like you can lead us through a yoga class, but is there something you could teach us here today?
Yeah, thank you that you asked because we were talking very spiritually and very, yeah, philosophically, which I love. But I also love action steps because all of this philosophy, if you don't use it, if you don't put it into action, it doesn't help. So, one thing that I really like to do that really helps, like we said, to slow down, to make this lake a bit more relaxed so you can control everything and see better what is going on, is to do breathing exercises. And the thing that I like the most about breathing exercises is that you don't need to change, you don't need yoga gear, you don't need to even open your mat, you just need a quiet place. And after you have some experience, you can do it everywhere. Like I sometimes do breathing exercises in the train if I need to. Because I also drive the train quite a lot, unfortunately. So you can do it basically everywhere if you learn how to do it and you feel comfortable with it, and you can do it without too much noise and without it looking too strange. And it just looks like I'm sleeping. So it's very easy. You just need to make sure that with the in breath, your stomach is expanding, and with the out breath, it's kind of contracting very slightly in the direction of your spine. So with the in breath, your lungs are getting very full and your diaphragm is kind of expanding. And then with the out breath, everything just kind of, yeah, sets back and you just let go. This is also, the out breath have this quality of just letting go. And the in breath has this quality of like eating, like it's nourishment. So when you lengthen your breath, you can kind of have more of this nourishment and you have more of this letting go. And usually it is recommended to make sure that, like with food, again, you don't eat too much. So you breathe, for example, for 4 seconds. You can even count like in breath, 2, 3, 4. And then the out breath should be either as long as the in breath or longer, because letting go, there is no limits to it in yoga. You can really, with practice, and it's really fast relatively, you can breathe really long out. So that's also a very beautiful thing about pranayama that I like, that relatively to a lot of other practices, you can see results relatively fast. It depends on the person and depends on the age, but the lungs are a very, very flexible organ in our body. It's kind of amazing, and it's very trainable, unlike other big muscles and things like that that are maybe, it looks better when you train them, but the muscles of your lungs and your diaphragm are very, very flexible and much easier to train actually. So that's a good place to start, just breathe for 4 seconds, breathe out for 6 seconds, for example, and just do this, 10 times or something like that. You can just count. And also the counting itself, if you count relatively slow, so it has this kind of a calming effect on your brain and on your whole system. Was that
Wonderful.
helpful?
I think so. I think any kind of breathing exercise where we can go within and calm down, because doing that for 2 or 3 minutes is enough to trigger the parasympathetic response of rest and digest, of turning off the fight or flight. And
Very true.
we need to do that like at least 5 times a day. I teach this. I teach a course. It's a course on how to completely get rid of anxiety, and I link it to how many diseases we create. They call them like lifestyle diseases, but we can create disease in the body by being in the stress response too much over a long period of time. And so we can really reverse a lot of stress related disease by doing something which is as free and as simple as your breathing exercise a few times a day. Some people need to pay for something in order to do it, and when it's free they don't do it, and this is the frustration. And I mean, I'm one to blame too, but there's so many free resources out there when it comes to breathing exercises, and yet sometimes people need to invest, and maybe it's an energetic thing, but they need to invest money so that they take it serious enough to actually do it.
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
which
it circles back to our conversation about materialism, about how we, put so much value on money. So it has also, this side of it, that if you don't invest the money in it and if you didn't bought it, you probably would not do it. And as a yoga teacher, I see it all the time, people are much more motivated and much less lazy when the course is more expensive. And I find it really funny sometimes because it's not, I teach the same thing in the cheap course as well. Like if you want to, you can come to the cheap course and I teach the same stuff. I just teach in different places, and sometimes there are different pricings that I'm not responsible of.
Right, right.
Uh,
Well, I've heard that I've been around a lot of coaches, and they say that when they increase their prices, their clients get better results. They do the exact same things with them, but that
I
their
can believe
clients
that
get better
immediately.
results across the board. I've heard it for years that when they really are cheap or even free, the clients get almost nothing out of it, and they do the same stuff, the same techniques, but if someone invests thousands of dollars versus hundreds or maybe just $10 or free, when they invest thousands of dollars, they have major life changes, major breakthrough. I mean, it's not 100% of the time. I'm sure there's people out there who are ready to change and they just want the tools and they're ready, but it's something about
Mm.
investing in something that means we'll do it for the majority and we'll get something out of it, which I just think is
Because they have a bigger why. Like if you are
mm,
ready to invest thousands of dollars in something, you probably have a bigger why. And if you have the same why, but you go to the cheap course, you can still have the same results because again, it's not the money that you put inside, it's the why that you put inside. And sometimes this why I invested quite a lot of money in it. So you put more effort.
that's definitely the first time I've heard it said that way, and I think that's a very interesting point, that the person who's willing to invest whatever it takes, their why is stronger. And so, really, like you said, it is about getting down to the strong why. Some people say, like, oh, I want to lose weight because of this wedding that's coming up. Well, that's not a strong why. But if
Mm,
it's, I want to lose weight because I want to be able to run with my dogs and run with my grandchildren, and that will bring me so much joy to have that experience, for example, then that might be a very strong why. Or this weight is preventing me from doing something I love that's, deep and meaningful to me. That is more of a stronger why. So we've got to get down to, when we ask ourselves, why are we doing this? We got to keep asking ourselves layer after layer after layer till we get down to the root of
mm,
what it really does mean, that experience of having it. Because when people, I just go back to weight loss, but when someone, or it could be depression, I want this depression to be gone. Well, what would your life be like? What would you be able to do, have, see, be, when this depression is gone or when this weight is gone? Um, Getting down to that why, it takes going layer after layer. And then that would be that motivation we tap into to get through the tough times. So we keep at it, right? We keep at the practice of yoga, or we keep at those practices, those lifestyle practices that are going to nurture us, right?
And I think it's even more than this. I think that if you ask yourself also the very difficult question, can I be happy and satisfied with my life right now? Can I accept
Mm,
myself as I am right now? Like if you are able to do this, and from this point of view said, okay, I have this goal, I have that goal, I want to recover from my depression, I want to lose weight, but it's not contradictory to the fact that I also love myself now. And whatever the situation it is that I am right now, I can still be satisfied with, this and this and this. So that's also extremely powerful. And this is also something that I really felt in my life, that if you come from a place of first I feel good about my body and first I feel good about myself, and from this point of view I want to lose weight, then also your why it's totally different. If you come from a place of like I'm doing this because I don't like myself and because I think that this will make me happy, if I'm going to do yoga because I don't like my life and I think that yoga will make my life brilliant, then you might come to problems because yoga wouldn't make your life brilliant in 1 second or even in a month or a few weeks. As I said, it's a continuous kind of work that you need to do. And I think if you come from the point of view, okay, I accept my life, I love my life, but I'm curious,
mm-hmm,
but I want more. And I know that there is more to my potential and I
mm-hmm,
want to live to my fullest potential. And this is why I want to do yoga, because I know it can bring me so much more than what I have now. Although what I have now is also good, that's kind of a totally different point of view. And I see it, yeah, the weight loss example, it's a very, very good one Because if you come from a body negative point of view, you will never lose weight. Doesn't matter how many calories deficient you put yourself on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with yoga. Weight loss, I think it's just easier to see because it's easier to measure. You can go on a weight, you can measure. With yoga, it's a bit harder to see, but I think it's the same. Like if you do it because you think that this kind of, and I know it from my personal experience, I went to one of my teachers and I told her like, I practice Buddhism, but I don't feel much better and my life still suck. And she was like, yeah, this is just the way it is. Like if you are looking for some kind of a magic pill, you are at the wrong place. And it's also like if you look for, this practice as something that should make your life unsuck, then, maybe there is a problem with how you look at your life from begin with. And that was for me kind of a shocking experience. It was many years ago, but it's still kind of an experience for me that, if my life still suck, it's not because, what I do now is wrong. It's because maybe some stuff that I'm doing is wrong or some kind of thoughts that I have are not really helping me anymore. But it's not because of the
Right.
practice, and the practice is not also what's going to save me. What's going to save me, it's me, basically.
I love when you said unsuck. Because it's not a
It's a direct translation from German.
is it
Uh,
really how do you say it in German?
yeah, I don't know. I would say it's like, yeah, now I don't know exactly. But in German, you just do, like, if you don't find a word for something, you can just say
The
un.
the
So
opposite.
Unscheiße. That's also not really German, actually, but
So the
that's very,
unsuck, but how to unsuck
yeah.
life, right? How to make your life not suck anymore. It's not about needing more or having more, doing more, being more. It is so true. And what you said is that right now, in this very moment, regardless of what you have or don't have, all of that melts away. Right now, you can choose to love yourself and you can choose to love your life. I did landmark education. I don't know if have you heard of that? It's
No,
a
unfortunately not.
no, it's worldwide. You can check it out. It's amazing. It's not a religion. It's a type of personal growth workshop that they do worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when I was in my teenage years, I started doing landmark and I was involved with them for many
Oh,
years.
amazing.
It's great personal growth work. It's fantastic. There was this one woman in this course that I took who
Mm-hmm.
had a very bad childhood. And this is her words, I had a bad childhood. My parents were abusive. My father
Oh.
was abusive and then he left and she had no love for him, right? And the
Mm.
leader, who's like a coach basically, said, can you love them because they gave you life? Like, can you let go of holding on to all of this past? Like, everything in the past is done. And when you're holding on to it, like, he's gone. The
Mm.
abusive father's gone. He's no longer here. Or the absentee father or the absentee mother, whatever your parents did to you, it's in the past, and you holding on to it now is
Mm.
only making your life suffer now. But life doesn't have to suffer. It's sort of like the wind on the lake, but you don't have to have the wind on the lake. Like, it's you are the one causing it. And
Mm.
the leader said, could you let go of everything and just hold on to one thing? Love your father because he gave you life. That's it. Just hold on to that. Could you just love him for giving you life? And it took her a while because she was so used to holding on to the rage and the anger and how dare he and the victimhood. But
Mm.
she finally
Yeah, that's hard
saw
to let go of. Yeah.
that all of that, holding on to all of that, was actually, she was destroying her own life. And she was creating the darkness and the depression because she couldn't let go of it. So when she let go of it, and it took her a few minutes, when she let go of it and held on to she just try on that the person that harmed you, for example, let's say someone in your past that you're holding on to this negative emotion, could you love them for the one thing that they did in your life that was positive? I mean, it could have been that they brought you groceries once, but could you love them for the one thing they did right and let go of
Mm.
everything they did wrong? Because you holding on to that wrong is actually you shooting yourself in the foot constantly, because
Yeah.
they're not suffering for you holding on to the emotion. They're not suffering for it. They're going on living their life, right? And it was amazing to see. It was like peeling back the layers of the filters, and we came to this
Mm.
point where, like you've been suggesting and sharing, that in the moment right now we can choose to love our life. Yes, maybe we don't have the car we want, we don't have the job we want, whatever, we don't have the body we want, or the health,
Yeah, we
the
don't have the health situation that we
right,
want.
right. But in the
Yeah.
moment we could find things that we love about our life. We could, just the being alive. I love my breath. I love that I can breathe. I love that, I have the ground beneath my feet. I love that I have clothing on my body and a roof over my head. I love that I'm listening to this great podcast. We can choose things we love and
Yeah.
just be present to a beautiful life that we do have, and let all the stuff we don't have melt away, and just choose that we love our life now. And then, like you said, all the goals can become just that, can become a desire to grow, to have the experience of growth, instead of this feeling of a void because we're missing this and being sad that we don't have it. Instead of
Mm.
that, we can love where we are now and be happy in the journey as we grow. And I think that's, yoga is about that journey, because it's never about achieving this one end, right? It's never about
No, it's never about achieving, this posture. It's about the process into the posture. And now when you say it, I kind of come back again. I'm a bit obsessed with this lake metaphor today. But I think that what I mean by that is also when you relax the wind and you see deeper into the lake of your mind, and you see deeper into your experience of life, generally speaking. So you see really interesting stuff there. And then naturally goes, the wish to dive deeper and to kind of find all of the treasures that are hidden inside of you. Do you understand what I mean? Is
mm-hmm.
it clear, or am I being too metaphorical?
I
like
love
I,
it. I
yeah.
think it's great. It's really
And I think
beautiful.
that a lot of, yeah, if I keep to this, I think that a lot of this wind, it's also about expectations. Because what you
Mm,
said also about this woman, it's about the expectations that you have mostly in like children, parents relationship from both sides, from child and from parents. There is like such a heavy, sometimes really crazy expectations, especially I come from Israel, and in Israel, like family has such an important role in our society. And for example, here in Germany, it's, people have more realistic expectations about their family. And if you don't have a connection with your family, it's something that, it happens. It doesn't have to ruin your life. And it doesn't mean that you are, lost in the world. We are living in a very modern world. And Germany, it's also a very modern place where the state can take care of you, even if you don't have that much family or you're not in touch with your family. So it's a lot about expectation. And it's the same with everything else. A lot of these wins come from unproportional expectations we have about ourselves, about life. Also, what we talked before, seeing other people and they look so shiny, like this photo shoot that I was doing for the photos that are now on my website. That was like one photo shoot that the pictures really went out really, really well, but the five before them was not that successful. Like you don't see the full picture. I was really lucky
mm-hmm.
to find some kind of a situation where there was no photographer there, and it was just me playing with the cameras. So I just had fun and was just kind of photographing myself in a situation that the lights were right and everything. It's like a cool studio here in Berlin that you can do that. I recommend it very much. But it's just, this one session, you don't see the whole picture. So it's easy to get jealous because you just see one tiny bit of the grass that looks really green. So,
mm,
there is just so much more that we don't see also inside our own selves.
mm,
And it's all about, the expectations that we have from other people. And, when these expectations started getting filled, we get disappointed and then we hold to the disappointment and we define ourselves by this. And the more you hold on to it, the more dangerous it can become, because the holding on, it's what really creates the suffering. If you experience a disappointment and you're sad and you're sitting with this sadness will go away naturally. But if you're holding on to it, you're not allowing it to do the natural process of just going on. So yeah, you're hurting yourself in the end.
Mm. Unfulfilled expectation leads to upset. That's another thing I learned from Landmark, and I was blown away when I heard it, because I realized how much I was upset with my parents. I was a teenager, and how
Mm,
and it was
classical.
I was holding them to expectations. Like I expect my dad to pick me up on time. I expect my mom to be home for dinner, or I expect just things of my parents. I expect them to do
Mm,
this. And then and so I it built up these expectations, and then when they didn't fulfill them, because they're just living their life and I didn't let them know, they're not psychic, I didn't let them know about the expectation,
uh,
then I would get upset with them. But we do this all the time. Our husband comes home and all of a sudden we unload on
mm,
them because we expected that he would have maybe picked up the
dinner
mail,
ready.
or yeah, right, exactly, or he would have brought dinner, or he would have been home an hour earlier, whatever it is. And our spouse is just kind of staring at us like, what just happened? But we have this whole conversation in our head about the what we expect them to do, and it's like we think they're psychic, and then we unload on them like they lied to us and they hurt us when they were just going through life, and it was really us that, we in our heads we made them make promises and then they didn't keep them in our heads, right? So these
Mm.
unfulfilled expectations lead to upset, and you're right, we do it to ourselves too. Let's talk about your website, because what you have, obviously you lead classes in person, so if a listener's in Berlin, they can reach out to you, but for those listeners around the world, they can take one of your courses. And I think it's so funny. I love how you put it on your website that for the price of 10 chai lattes, they could take your class. And it's, that really does put it into perspective, because it's not that much money. Um, why should someone take your online class? And of course, the links to everything you do is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast, freedomyoga.info. And then also the link to your wonderful online class. Why should people, or who are the kinds of people that really should consider taking your online class?
Yeah, I think my online class, it's called Become Your Own Teacher. So you need to have the motivation to kind of empower yourself and don't come with the expectation of me telling you what to do. It's a lot about self-exploration. I just give information and then I present questions. And then we discuss like we discussed here, and we discuss, whatever comes out. Um, the course is mostly for people who really wants to go deep into the practice of yoga, that they want to practice yoga but not in a superficial level. They really want to understand what they are doing. I'm focusing there on, yeah, as you already know me by now, about philosophy, about theory. I also give a lot of practical tools, but it's kind of like the behind the scene. So when people understand more why they doing what they're doing, we also talked about it, like finding their own whys and finding a bigger why. So it automatically helps them to practice more regularly and have a deeper experience while they are practicing. So I start really from the very basic of yoga, like I mentioned before, also the ethical part of yoga, which is not that sexy and it doesn't look good on camera, and you cannot post it on Instagram, and it's really kind of neglected in my point of view, although it's a treasure. You can really practice it at any time and in any place, and if you really understand it and you really integrate it in your own life, it can bring you so much serenity and just very clear guidelines to what to do and when and why. So this is what I start with. This is the first model of the course, and you can buy all three models at one. You can buy them separately according to your own wish and your own ability. The second model, it's more about reconnecting with your body. It's really understanding basic things about your body, basic things about the asana practice, the very famous part of yoga, but really to look behind the scene of how to build it in a way that it's safe, in a way that it's respecting for your body, why we even do them, all kind of things like this I talk about. And then I give, the last model, it's all about meditation. And what we talk today about meditation, I dive quite deep inside of this. And I think the real value is that I also give a lot of one-on-one support. So it's really important to me that people not just see the videos or hear the audios, but they also do their homework. Like in the end of every class, you get homework. And if you share your homework with the group or with me, most people like to share it with me. I try to answer as fast as possible, usually within 24 hours. And we can really go into a discussion about things and whatever come up to you. And I think that that's the real value that people get, that they get a place where they can talk about things that you don't always find somebody to talk about with, or they get some understandings that it's hard to get when you just, going to a weekly class in yoga.
I love it. I love it. Definitely things that should be part of a yoga practice but aren't, because people just go to these classes and the classes don't have enough time to really go deeper into what into the holistic system of yoga. So really what you're doing is you're helping someone have a holistic experience of yoga, bringing it into their life and not just at the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. And just bringing it into something that you can live and you can use it every moment. Because if you're practicing regularly for long enough and your experience is deep enough and you know why you are doing and why, even if you're just starting, but you are starting from a good point of view, you're starting with a deep understanding of what you are doing. So it becomes a tool, again, as a support that you can use in every situation in your life. Because as I said, there is no practical use of standing on one leg, but there is a practical use to learn to fall. And this is something that I think and I hope that people can experience in my program.
Mm. I mean, there are, like you said, or standing on your head or whatever the crazy things we end up doing in yoga. There's no like practical application, but the balance that it gives us, and then, like you said, learning to fall and the emotional strength, the strengthening of our ability to pick ourselves back up and to process what happened and to get ourselves back on a positive track and to create the life we want versus being stuck in misery. Yoga gets us unstuck, and it helps us
Yeah.
make our life unsuck, right? So so I love what
Yeah.
you do. I think it's a lot of fun, and thank you so much for coming today and sharing with us. And I hope the listeners who are battling depression will dive into yoga and take your class as well, so that they can gain these tools, that will help strengthen them so that they can get their life to a place where they're happy and that they're have developed inner peace.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for trusting me with your people. And yeah, definitely, if you are in a struggle, I think that's the best time to start practicing. Again, not as a cure, more as a support. Or if you are, in a recovery process, that's the best time to practice. Because I always say, I have friends, their life are just too comfortable. Why should they start yoga? They don't see why it's necessary, because things are just too easy for them right now. So I think especially if you are in a health crisis in whatever way, I think to reach out for yoga as a support, it's the best place to start, because as I said, you start with the right motivation, you start with the bigger why.
Enjoy what you heard today on your episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Did something move you, inspire you? Did you get great information that's going to change your life? Awesome. That's exactly what I'm here to do, is to help you gain your health back. Please turn around and share this. If this is something that's helped you in any way, share this with those you love. Love the Learn True Health podcast and want to support us? Awesome. You can go to takeyoursupplements.com and you can support us that way. You'll get access to amazing supplements that are just really great quality for a great price. And there'll be someone on the other end of the line to help you pick out your supplements that are right for you. That's takeyoursupplements.com, or join our membership, learntruehealth.com/join. That's another great way to support our podcast, support our movement, and you'll be supporting yourself. Gain more information, wonderful videos, wonderful trainings, and you'll also be able to share those with those you love as well. So go to learntruehealth.com/join. Want something fun for free? Go to learntruehealth.com, and right there on the front page, you'll see where you can get our free cookbook. I spent a lot of time making it, and it was so much fun. It's really delicious, healthy recipes. And you can also get our 7-day doctor course. Right there, it's 7 days of naturopathic videos sent right to your inbox, and you can learn from top naturopaths on how to gain health naturally. So that's takeyoursupplements.com for wonderful supplements, learntruehealth.com/join to join our awesome membership, which is only open for a limited time. You can get our free healthy cookbook, and you can also get for free 7 days of wonderful naturopathic videos sent to you. Just go to learntruehealth.com and you'll see it right there on the front page. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you for sharing and helping others. Let's spread this information and turn this ripple into a tidal wave.